Storytelling. My greatest passion. Even from a young age, stories, specifically in film and TV, captivated me and transported me to a world beyond my own. I remember being young, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and my mum bought me the VHS for Sam Raimi's original Spider-Man. The bright colours, the gorgeously crafted shots, the chemistry between the actors, Danny Elfman's incredible score, the age-old internal battle between self-preservation and responsibility. This left a deep impression on me, sparking a fascination with the world of filmmaking. As I grew older, this passion deepened and led me to pursue creative outlets of telling stories through writing, as a way of expressing my inner ideas and visions. I wanted to craft stories that resonated with readers and let my unique voice as a writer shine through, all of my stories being fueled by my innate visual imagination, writing these stories while I envisioned them as vivid cinematic experiences unfolding across a screen. Motivated by my visions, I began to experiment with amateur filmmaking, making silly comedies in my living room and music videos for my friends' bands, all alongside a creative writing undergraduate degree to hone my skills as a writer. I excessively analysed the work of my favourite directors, dissecting their film to see just how they had pulled it off. And while all of this progressed me as a storyteller, I found myself knowing that I had much more to learn about the craft. 1 year after finishing my undergraduate degree at MMU, I found myself with no creative outlets and a burning passion for film that didn't feel fulfilled, which led me to apply for MA Film Production. Coming to this degree as a writer, I wanted to learn all I could about storytelling. I was comfortable as a writer, but I knew next to nothing about directing, camera work, editing or sound. I knew this would be a challenge, coming into something so complex at a late stage, especially when a lot of people would have the experience that I lacked. But I went for it, even though I had a hell of a lot to learn, because it had been a long time since I challenged myself. So, I knew what I lacked, but what did I want to gain? My aim for the course was to push myself to try new areas of storytelling that I knew little about, such as sound, camera work and editing, both to widen my horizons and also to make me a better scriptwriter, as I will be mindful of these things. I also really wanted to direct something correctly, as while in the past I had made amateur films, there was little to no direction involved. This had been something that I'd always wanted to do. I told myself that by the end of the term, I would have pushed myself out of my comfort zone to try at least try all of these things and to figure out what areas interested me and that I could excel in. Leading into my first film of the term, the horror comedy Stone Cold Witch. My writing had always excelled in comedy, so this seemed like a logical place to start and I could build upwards from there. Once I had expressed my interest in making a comedy film, I was approached by Chesden, who wanted to make something similar. We spoke and brainstormed some different ideas, some of these including an old script of mine called The Meeting, a film about higher powers brainstorming the events of the next calendar year, and a situational comedy about university students. However, Chesden pitched the idea for Stone Cold Witch, a dark supernatural comedy about 3 witches trying to perform a virgin sacrifice. However, when the sacrifice turns out to be a homosexual, they have a hard time of defining what a virgin really is in the definition of their ancient spellbook. I loved this idea, and since Ches had come up with the idea, he wanted to write it, which left the responsibility of director to me. While this was something that was very alien to me, I reminded myself of the goals I'd set for myself. While Ches worked away on the first draft of the script, I began to prepare myself as a director. Being completely honest, the idea of directing my first film was very daunting. I knew that the project would require a large crew, and managing that amount of people while also focusing on the film terrified me. I wanted to prepare myself as best I could. I didn't want to let everyone down. I aimed to make an entertaining horror comedy, blending the two elements together to make something just as unsettling as it is funny, with believable and relatable characters. I believe that this blending of genres would challenge me as a filmmaker to not just stick to one set of conventions. I started looking at the methodology of some of my own personal favourite directors such as Martin Scorsese, Taika Waititi, Jordan Peele and Damien Chazelle. I came across a series on YouTube called The Director's Chair, where Scorsese himself talks about the way he directs films. Something that I found incredibly interesting was Scorsese's emphasis on character, his obsession with making his characters authentic and believable, which was not only down to him but also the actors. Scorsese allows his actors the freedom to make the characters their own, and sometimes has to break out of his own vision to experiment for the good of the project. I also admired Scorsese's use of long tracking shots, something that I implemented into the film with Shannon walking to the curtain. This is something that I took with me. I watched behind the scenes videos of these directors doing their job over and over, and while I learned how a director should act, I didn't want to just copy someone else. I wanted the film to have my own flair. So with the film being a horror comedy, I began to research these genres. I took influences from films such as Get Out and Scary Movie for how a horror comedy should work. However, I kept coming back to the idea of the sacrifice at the beginning of the script and how I thought it should look. I looked at the idea of a sacrifice presented in the 2012 Drew Goddard horror, The Cabin in the Woods, scribbling down some notes as I watched. Cabin in the Woods buys into the usual slasher conventions of sexual identity, with the first character to die being a half-naked female character who is being punished for sexual activity, with a partner who also engaged in the activity being the next to die. The final girl is seen as an innocent virgin, surviving all of the slaughter and making her way to the end. In a Louisiana State University study by Chad Brewer, it stated that the final girls who survive at the end of the film always remain virgins. Those that engage in sexual behaviour often die at the hands of the killer. I thought it would be interesting for our film to flip this on its head, as it seems as if the character of James is being punished for being a virgin, despite his promiscuity as a homosexual man, when he says,
I've been a real slut, please don't kill me. Oh my god, I'm not a virgin, I swear.
Where usually men are often praised and revered for their sexual prowess. This would have been reversed even more in an earlier draft of the script, where the character of Faye is revealed to be a virgin and becomes to sacrifice herself. I also paid close attention to the atmosphere and the mise-en-scène in The Cabin in the Woods. By the end of the film, the characters have suffered and become impure, connoted by their dirty clothing and blood covering their faces. I brought this forward for the character of James. The warm, low-key lighting of the sacrificial chamber also inspired the torches used in the opening scene of Stone Cold Witch. I spoke to my peers who had done the undergraduate film production degree to find out what I should expect as the shooting dates drew nearer and my nerves became more apparent. One thing that everyone told me was to prepare for something to go wrong, as it always does. This could not have been more true. The first issue was that our actress for Faye dropped out the week before the shooting date. Ches and I scrambled to find another actress for the lead role, which we eventually did find. However, in true Stone Cold Witch fashion, they also dropped out on the day of shooting. As the panic began to set in, we were lucky once again to find a lead actress in Fran Barker-Smith, the actress who had played Faye in our test shoot. She was cast alongside Matilda James as Shannon, whose deadpan and shy way of playing Shannon in the test shoot made me sure which she was perfect for the part. Chesden as producer had cast Lauren Greenwood and Patrick Sarah as Kelly and James respectively. With our cast finally set in stone and the shoot coming up that evening, we travelled with the crew to Ches's house in Bolton, with the inside scenes being shot there and the ritual scene being shot in the woods near his house. However, the inside scenes were a late addition. Knowing the Manchester weather, we needed to be prepared for the rain. Doing so, Ches and I had the idea of having two separate scripts. The original, which was all to be filmed in the woods, and an alternate, which would require only one outside scene and more inside scenes to protect equipment and make our lives a little bit easier in the event of rain. Of course, knowing our luck, it did indeed rain on the day of shooting. I think the theme of this shoot really was adapting to our circumstances. With the first two problems of the shoot out of the way, the shoot began, and while I had done all I could to prepare myself as a director, I feel I learned more on that set than any online video or other director could teach me. I learned as the shoot went on what sort of blocking worked, what lighting were best for the scene, how to get a raw performance out of the actors. With the wood scene filmed, we then had to move on to the taxi scene, a new addition to the alternative scripts, which evidently needed an actor for the taxi driver. With no one else wanting to step forward, I took the part on myself, playing the part whilst also directing myself with some help from Chesden. Following this, Ches and I noticed the cast and crew were stalling. It was 2 AM and we'd been shooting since 7 PM in the rain. As much as we had planned and wanted to get the shoot out of the way in one night, we thought it would be beneficial to the film if we came back and put our all into the rest of the scenes another day. Looking back on it now, this was definitely the right decision. I showed up to the second day of shooting with a hell of a lot more confidence in my skills as director and a lot more energy, and this time I actually, kind of, knew what I was doing. Like always, things went wrong, but by the end of it, I was confident that we had produced something really great and just as importantly, really funny. After completing Stone Cold Witch, I found myself reflecting on my role and contribution to the project, one of the aspects of this being the exploration of my distinctive authorial style. Blending dark humour with horror and supernatural elements wasn't solely about entertaining the audience, it was also a manifestation of my unique voice in the world of storytelling. My journey through this film helped me to realise the importance of understanding established and emergent film methods, taking on the methods of those that came before us. By critically evaluating my choices in Stone Cold Witch, I've developed my skills in harnessing visual elements to convey a deeper narrative. This reflection also deepened my understanding of the historical and cultural nuances that can be embedded in film, such as an exploration of sexual identity and the way that it is portrayed, pushing me to explore innovative ways to incorporate them into my art. Furthermore, peer collaboration during the project enlightened me. The insights and perspectives of those around me provided a richer understanding of the filmmaking process, a testament to the value of group reflection and constructive feedback, both of which have proved to be essential to my professional development. In regards to lessons I learned from this project, I first of all learned that something will always go wrong, in ways that you can never plan for. All you can do is improvise, adapt, and overcome. I also learned not to take too much responsibility on. I would have benefited from an assistant director to help things go more smoothly, so I could focus fully on directing. This would have helped me to keep an eye on continuity to save the cutting of some shots. In the interest of continuity, an entire scene had to be cut in the edit due to issues with lighting and blocking, leaving out some good jokes and a comedic whip pan that I personally loved. However, in the interest of the quality of the film, I had to kill my darlings. This film gave me a lot of confidence as a director, believing in my own vision. However, it also taught me to listen to those around me and to be open to criticism and outside ideas that may not necessarily fit with my specific idea. Above all, I learned the importance of teamwork on a set. I could not have done any of this without every single member of cast and crew, and their importance should not be undermined. I believe I did what I set out to do with Stone Cold Witch. While things could have gone more smoothly, I feel Ches and I worked together well to craft a dark comedy with some hilarious moments, electric characters and dark forces brewing within. Moving forward, I aim to cultivate my distinctive directorial and narrative style, while still challenge myself to experiment and innovate. Once Stone Cold Witch was over and done with, I had a gap in time before my next major project. I decided to challenge myself to learn more about cameras themselves, doing this by crewing as a first AC on Quid Pro Quo. My responsibilities here consist of helping cinematographer Louis Clark with lens changes, assisting with camera movements, and I even focus pulled for the first time. This greatly improved my understanding of the way a camera works, how different lenses affect the way a scene looks, and I also found out that I'm half decent at focus pulling. I familiarised myself with the way a film set works, observing Louis setting up shots and the way he crafted his vision for the way the film should look. This is something I didn't really get to do on Stone Cold Witch, as I was too busy directing to take in my surroundings. It was nice to take a step back and have some responsibility taken off my shoulders. Louis and I worked together well, leading to him asking me to help again as first AC on his innovative project, and I myself offering him the role of director of photography on my next project. Before long, I began developing ideas for my next major project for the innovative film section of the course, Artificial Friendship. Once the innovative practices block came around, I had already learned a lot and gained confidence in the filmmaking field. I scrambled my brain to think of an innovation of filmmaking that interested me, leading me to think of a film that I had seen years prior, Anish Chaganty's 2018 film Searching. The way that Chaganty had crafted a world inside a computer and told a compelling story using only computer software, webcams, social media and FaceTime had always fascinated me. I knew this was the innovation that I wanted to focus on. Despite my interest in Searching, I also chose this innovation as I thought it was a great representation of how the technology of our time is influencing our filmmaking. This generation is defined by the technology of computers and social media, with Searching being a narrative manifestation of that. I wanted to see if I could tell a compelling story using early webcam footage, social media and a computer screen, whilst also looking to the past to see how technology had influenced film throughout time, deciphering how both technological and situational constrictions influence filmmakers, enriching my understanding of the innovation and helping me to craft my idea, as I was also taking on the responsibility of writing, directing and editing the film. I began by looking into the history of filmmaking, right back at the start, looking at how it had developed as the world around it did the same, starting with the era of silent cinema, the birth of film or moving pictures with the introduction of film cameras, projectors and celluloid film. This enabled the dawn of narrative film, visual storytelling and film grammar, pioneering techniques which we take for granted such as cinematography, editing and mise-en-scène in order to tell a story without dialogue. Closely followed by the arrival of sound in film, transforming cinema by allowing dialogue, music and sound effects in order to bring new storytelling opportunities and further engage with the audience. It wasn't long before colour was introduced in the 1930s with The World, the Flesh and the Devil, with the Kinemacolor process. before The Wizard of Oz changed the way that cinematographers worked and set a standard going forward. Then came the rise of television and Technicolor, causing competition between film and television, forcing filmmakers to develop new techniques to differentiate themselves. Coming to more modern times, there was the digital revolution, with the introduction of digital cameras, CGI and non-linear editing systems. This reformed film production techniques, and new effects allow filmmakers to create immersive worlds and characters in ways that were impossible in the past. Some filmmakers leaving practical effects behind, for better or for worse. Finally, in the modern day, we have virtual and augmented reality, interactive films, artificial intelligence, and social media. Tiny computers in our pockets that we can pick up and use to record something at the moment's notice. Filmmaking has never been more accessible, with some filmmakers creating entire films using only an iPhone. Now that I understood the past, I began to focus on the present and realised the vision for my innovation. But how could I bring this innovation to life? Aiming to, like Searching, demonstrate the gradual integration of the offline real life and the online virtual life, and cast doubt on the conventional view about what is real and what is not. I first started by reading the unique script for Searching and understanding exactly how the writers had bridged the gap between page and screen. I took note of how descriptive the script was, detailing every mouse click, keystroke, text and web page that the audience would see. Next, I looked at the technical aspects of how Giganti brought the computer screen to life, finding out that the screen in Searching is more of an animation in Adobe After Effects than an actual computer. I had challenged myself to edit the film in order to learn more about the editing process from a storytelling perspective, and while I had a basic understanding of Adobe Premiere Pro, I knew that I could not create an animation of a computer screen within the 4-week time frame. And I even considered scrapping the idea in favour of something easier to make. However, I once again reminded myself of my goal to get out of my comfort zone and decided to stick to the idea. I also looked into Rob Savage's 2020 horror film, Host, a film about a seance set entirely within Zoom. This film was made during the 2020 COVID lockdown and presents an innovative way of getting around restrictions in filmmaking. Unlike Searching, no animation was used to make Host, and it was all shot directly through the Zoom software, using meticulous timing and practice to get the more elaborate scenes right. Inspired by this, I decided that instead of animating the computer screen like Giganti had, I would film the scenes of Joe's webcam first. I then intended to record my own computer screen in the editing process to match up with his movements, using fake social media profiles and web pages to add depth to the screen. Once I had my vision for how the film should look, it was time to begin writing the script. Described by myself as Her meets 2001 A Space Odyssey, in which a lonely student strikes up a relationship with an AI. However, when the student gets into a relationship in real life, the AI becomes jealous and wants him all to itself. Before I wrote the script, I did some research into how an AI would actually conversate by inserting lines from my own script into ChatGPT and trying to make the AI's character as authentic as possible. While the character of Cleo is completely original, I used ChatGPT's responses to influence Cleo's lack of emotion at the beginning of the script before she feels emotion for Joe, with her emotional side as the film going on being inspired by Joaquin Phoenix's relationship with Samantha and Her. Cleo's descent into jealousy was deliberately gradual, with the viewer only seeing glimpses of her ill intentions until she ruins Joe's life. This was to align the audience with Joe, initially trusting Cleo and not realising how dangerous she is before it's too late. I wanted Joe to feel as isolated as possible, using the initial birthday party scene to juxtapose with the present day, with the character watching all footage of him surrounded by friends to emphasise his loneliness. The next obstacle I faced while shooting was from a cinematography perspective. How could I make shots interesting if they were all medium close-ups from the same angle in the same room? In the initial birthday party scene, I used shaky handheld movement and an all-digital camera to make the footage authentic to the situation. Director of photography Louis Clark and I played with the lighting and mise-en-scène in the bedroom to make the background of the shot as enticing as possible, moving around posters and using a sunset lamp to add some colour to the wall behind Joe. I also added in a scene with organic movement set in the living room and FaceTime calls from a separate location in order to add some variety to the film. With shooting finished, I then had the mammoth task of editing the film, which included filming my own screen to act as Joe's computer and customising the background to something true to his character. With the character being slightly nerdy, I added video game icons and a space theme wallpaper. I had to watch back the footage of Joe at his computer and perfectly time my mouse and keyboard movements so the footage matched up. I then created 3 social social media profiles for Adam, Lucy and Joe, which could be opened up within the computer to add another layer to the world that I had created, helping the characters feel real. Once the film had been spliced together, I had to create Cleo, feeding her lines into an AI text-to-speech website called voiceover.speechify.com. Finally came colour grading, something which I had never done before and had very minimal knowledge of. Through a litany of YouTube tutorials and trial and error, I finally had my first edited film. Looking back on Artificial Friendship, I found myself proud that I didn't take the easy way out and put my all into a project that I was really passionate about. I took what I had learned about directing from Stone Cold Witch and funneled it into my innovative project, letting Elliot, the actor for Joe, make the character his own while giving him constructive feedback to align with my vision, such as the scene where he's asking Cleo questions, which was all improvised by Elliot. I crafted interesting shots within the constraints of the film and tried to make it entertaining with very little movement and shot variety to work with. I made a suspenseful script which touched on the topical rise of AI and hopefully allowed the audience to align with and root for Joe. Finally, I edited my first film, teaching myself how to edit and colour grade within Premiere Pro in the process. While I feel I could have improved the film with better knowledge of editing, such as sound design and a longer time period to really polish it off, I do believe I presented the best piece of work I could. Overall, I feel the established and innovative practices unit has taught me a lot about myself as a storyteller. I forced myself to come out of my comfort zone and to try new things such as directing, being a first AC and editing in the interest of self-improvement while building on the skills I already had such as script writing. My only regret is that I did not push myself to learn more about sound such as sound design and using a boom mic. This unit cemented the importance of teamwork from the many moving parts on a set to peer review and constructive criticism, as I really cannot do it all myself. I feel the skills I gained during this term will be essential for working in the film industry, such as improvisation and adaptation when obstacles arise, working as part of a large team, and using the feedback of those around me to further my craft. This reflection process has instilled in me a sense of responsibility and commitment to elevating my craft, not just as a filmmaker, but as a storyteller with a unique voice in the industry.